There are places that seem designed to keep secrets. Places where sound disappears quickly. Where the woods grow thick enough to swallow light, and where time itself feels slower. Bear Brook State Park in New Hampshire was one of those places. Miles of forest, dirt trails, dense trees stretching endlessly in every direction. The kind of place people go to be alone, or the kind of place someone chooses when they don't want to be found. Welcome to Behind the Yellow Tape. I'm Mimi, and here we share some of the most spine-chilling, gut-stirring, mysterious crime stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. So if mystery and crime is your cup of tea, then you'll definitely get your fill here. We upload every Wednesday at 6:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you love a midweek dose of suspense, whether from your favorite seat, the car, before bed, or during your favorite activity, then leave a like to help build the algorithm. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss an upload. Now, let's take a step behind the yellow tape. In November 1985, a hunter walked into those woods. The air was cold, winter settling in, and somewhere beyond the trees, he noticed something strange. A barrel. It sat off the trail, partially hidden, old, rusting, out of place. At first, it looked like trash, something dumped and forgotten. But as the hunter moved closer, something felt wrong. The smell hit first, then came the realization. This wasn't garbage. Inside the barrel were human remains. Police arrived quickly. The area was taped off. Investigators stepped carefully through wet leaves and mud, trying to understand what they were looking at. Inside the barrel were the bodies of a woman and a young girl. They had been there for a long time. Too long. And almost immediately, investigators understood something terrifying. This wasn't recent. Whoever left them there had already walked away years ago. The woman appeared to be in her 20s or 30s. The child, around 8 or 9 years old. No identification, missing persons reports that clearly matched, or obvious suspect. And in 1985, that mattered because DNA technology barely existed in criminal investigations. There were no ancestry databases, social media trails, or digital footprints. If someone disappeared quietly enough, they could almost vanish completely. Investigators searched the surrounding woods, but they found nothing else. No weapons, campsite, or clues pointing clearly towards who these people were. The barrel itself became the center of the investigation. A steel drum, it was industrial and heavy, the kind of thing not easily carried deep into the woods alone. Whoever put it there had a vehicle, time, and confidence. That detail bothered investigators because it suggested planning, not panic. News of the discovery spread through New Hampshire quickly. 2 bodies in the woods, a woman, a child, unknown. People became uneasy because there's something uniquely haunting about unidentified victims. A murder is horrifying, but anonymity makes it worse. No names meant no story, no family to come forward, and no timeline. Just silence. And the silence stretched on. Weeks passed, then months. The woman and child remained unidentified. Police released sketches, descriptions, and appeals to the public, but nothing. No one came looking. Eventually, the case began to cool. Not because the investigators stopped caring, but because there was no one left to go to. And over time, the woods reclaimed their quiet, until 15 years later. In the year 2000, Bear Brook gave up another secret. Workers near the same wooded area discovered another barrel. At first, investigators hoped for anything except what they feared. But when they opened it, they found more remains. This time, 2 more young girls, children. The realization hit investigators immediately. These cases were connected. Someone had left 4 victims in the woods. Not one act of violence, but multiple lives erased and hidden. And somehow, the mystery had become darker. Because now, investigators had a new question. Why were these children never reported missing? Years passed again, and still, they had no names. The victims became known publicly only by descriptions. The adult female, the child, the younger girl. Imagine that for a moment. Living your entire life only to become unidentified remains in a forest. No gravestone with your real name or family standing publicly beside your photo. Just a mystery. But behind the scenes, technology was changing slowly, quietly, and eventually it would change everything. By the early 2000s, forensic science had evolved dramatically. DNA testing became more advanced, databases expanded, and cold cases once thought impossible suddenly had new possibilities. Investigators revisited Bear Brook again and again, re-examining evidence, comparing missing persons reports, and following leads that went nowhere. And one detail kept surfacing. Witnesses remembered a man connected to the unidentified women years earlier. He had used different names, different stories, and different identities depending on who he was talking to. And that detail changed the direction of the entire investigation. Because now, investigators weren't just looking for a killer, they were looking for someone who may never have truly existed under the name people knew him by. The deeper they dug, the stranger the story became. Women disappearing, children moving constantly, fake names, new towns, and sudden exits. It was as if someone spent years constructing temporary lives, only to abandon them whenever questions got too close. And eventually, investigators uncovered the name most associated with the mystery: Terry Peter Rasmussen. But even that name wasn't really his. Rasmussen was a drifter, a manipulator, a man who seemed able to become whoever he needed to be. Different states, different girlfriends, and different identities. To some people, he was charming, quiet, and helpful. To others, he was controlling, unpredictable, and dangerous, and wherever he went, people seemed to disappear. By the time investigators fully connected Rasmussen to the Bear Brook victims, he was already dead, which meant the only way to solve the mystery now was through the victims themselves. Who were they? Where did they come from? And why had no one found them? One of the most heartbreaking parts of the Bear Brook case was realizing how invisible some of these victims had become, especially the children. Because children are supposed to leave traces, like school records, doctor visits, photographs, or even friends. But some of these girls seemed to disappear from history entirely, and that suggested something terrifying. They may have spent their entire lives under false identities. Imagine growing up with someone, trusting them completely, without realizing the person raising you may actually be a predator hiding from his own past. That possibility haunted investigators. And then, finally, the breakthrough came. Genetic genealogy. The same technology that would later solve cases across the country began unlocking Bear Brook piece by piece. DNA linked family trees, distant relatives, and forgotten connections. And after decades, the victims slowly began getting their names back. The adult victim was identified as Marlise Honeychurch, one of the children, Marie Vaughn, and for years they had existed publicly only as unidentified remains. Now, they were people again. Daughters, family members, and actual human beings. And perhaps the most chilling discovery of all was that one of the girls was biologically related to Rasmussen himself, meaning the killer had likely murdered his own child. Even now, some parts of the story remain unsolved, and questions still linger in the woods around Bear Brook. Questions about movement, identity, and control, and how one man managed to disappear into ordinary life for so long, because the most frightening predators rarely look frightening. Sometimes they look trustworthy, like a neighbor, a boyfriend, or even a father figure. Someone who can walk through life unnoticed while carrying unimaginable secrets. And somewhere deep in Bear Brook State Park, these trees still stand where the barrels were found, silent and waiting, as if the woods themselves remember. Tonight's story definitely made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. And if it did for you too, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. And also, don't forget to tune in every Wednesday at 6:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm Mimi, and this has been another step behind the yellow tape. Good night.